Alright everyone, here is the mixing demo for the different neutral value strains. We're going to be using Burnt Umber and Ultramarine Blue. We'll be making warm and cold neutrals from those combinations. The Burnt Umber here is kind of acting like an orange in a way. So these are all complementary color combinations, colors that are opposite of one another on the color wheel, and they'll make neutrals. Then we have Alizarin Crimson and Phthalo Green. This is one of my favorite neutrals, and we'll also push that warm and cool. And then we're going to mix a purple and combine the purple with yellow as our last complementary color combination. So let's begin by getting out the paint on our palettes. Okay, so Burnt Umber. Now you are going to do just one. For each of these combinations, you will have two value strains that you're adding to your value strains assignment. There will be the warm version and the cool version. You can just apply those with a hard edge paint application. You do not need to do all the different types of paint applications. You just need to have the warm and cool neutral combinations. So do not feel the need to apply it in those 4 different ways that we did for the black and the white. Okay, now we're putting out the Alizarin Crimson. It's a very cool red. Okay, Alizarin Crimson and Phthalo Green, which is a very cool green, so cool in temperature. The Alizarin Crimson and Phthalo Green is going to give us an incredibly dark neutral, and the color is really satisfying with those neutrals. Okay, then we're going to put out some cadmium yellow over here. I'm also going to put out some paint to mix a purple to go with our yellow as a complement. So to do that, I'm actually going to put out some Alizarin Crimson. I am going to put out a little bit of Phthalo Green too. This can actually make a really lovely purple, and then also some of the Ultramarine Blue. Okay, so we have our colors at the top of the palette. I'm also going to be putting out some gel. I can put that down at the bottom over here. Some of my solvent-free gel to make my paint more fluid. And I'm going to put out some white paint in the bottom corner over here. And I will be mixing from dark end to the light, so the white's right there. Okay, and I'm keeping my palette from the very beginning organized, so putting my paint piles up the top, giving myself lots of mixing space. Okay, let's begin. And I have my paper towels handy, mixing with my palette knife. Do not try to do these mixing exercises with your brushes. It's much better to use your palette knife. And yeah. Alright, so let's begin with our Burnt Umber and Ultramarine Blue. This is a really classic combination. You'll be using this neutral quite a bit. So to do the warm version, to start off, I'm going to put some of the Burnt Umber down, and I'm going to put some of the Ultramarine Blue down as well. Okay, and then to do the cool version, I'll put more of the Burnt Umber down. I'm going to put more blue into the cool version, so I'm pushing it closer towards blue. Alright. So this is this way of mixing. What we're doing right now, we're mixing, these are going to look like black, so you can mix these chromatic blacks. So that's black with color. It's not like ivory black, which has a very kind of dead look to it. And that ivory black can work if you're just doing a grayscale painting. But if you're looking at something in real life, it's usually not just going to be that kind of dead black. It might have some color in it. It might have some warmth in it. And learning how to mix these different neutrals is going to allow you to know how to mix all these different blacks and grays and browns and how to push them towards different colors, how to adjust the temperature, for example, and also how to adjust the chroma, or the color, the intensity of the color. Okay, so we're going to mix these neutrals, okay, and we're going to take the same approach that we did with our black and white value scales. So we're going to start by mixing. We'll take this will be acting as our black, we'll mix a middle gray, and then we'll mix out our other values from that middle gray. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty pretty good. I'm also, before I fully commit to everything, I'm going to put a little bit of this down here. And when a color gets so dark, it can be a little bit hard to tell what is the temperature truly like, what is this color actually like. And if we add a little bit of white into it, it can help us out with that. So let's see. Yes, that's a nice warm gray. It's definitely leaning more towards the burnt umber, which is what I want for the warm neutral. So that one's working. I'm going to return to this and mix a full value scale, but before I do that, I want to mix out my cool version and also check its temperature, just like I did for the warm neutral. Okay, so this should definitely go cooler because I put a lot more of the ultramarine blue in here. Now I still want it to be a neutral, so it should feel like a brown or a gray. It shouldn't feel overly blue. It shouldn't feel like too much of one color, but you're kind of leaning it towards either warmth or leaning it towards a cool temperature. So you're keeping that subtle, but you can kind of push and pull these neutrals in different directions. Okay, and we can see that that blue, especially in this combination, pushes this quite dark. So we're getting essentially learned how to mix a black. Okay, all right. So before I move much further, before I mix a bunch of a middle gray, I'll just do a little test. Okay, so let's see if there's too much blue. We still want it to be reading like a gray. Nope, that's quite nice. So you can see already I'm going to mix out my value scales now with these combinations, but I'm using just these two colors. One I've pushed warmer, one I've pushed cooler, and we have these different grays, and they, even with just those two colors, pushing them and pulling them in different ways can give us radically different types of grays to work with, which is really useful. Okay, so, and again, with each of these value strains that you're mixing, the warm and cool ones, you're just going to be applying one to your value scales project, so you don't have to mix a ton, but we do need to mix out 10 distinctive steps going from, it will go from white to our pure black that we're mixing. Okay, so we need to mix those different steps to address our value scale. All right, so now I'm going to start with mixing more of a mid-gray. So I'm going to grab this neutral, put that right there, grab a bit of white, okay, so aiming for a kind of mid-tone gray that I can then take and adjust going both ways on the value scale. Okay, that looks good, so let's take some of that and give myself some steps to work with. bigger pile here, less and less as I go out. Okay. So working in this way just helps me to control the values that I'm trying to mix. Okay, so we're always striving for a strategic approach when we can. Okay, so I've made my little notes. Now I'm going to start with the lighter end of the value scale. So I'll mix a really light gray right here. This light warm gray. Try to mix it fully. Okay. So that is a gray that is very close to white. And now, rather than going back to my white pile and getting pure white, I'll take some of this light gray I've just mixed and start to mix up my value scale. So again, that approach is all about just being able to slowly control the values so that you're not trying to mix every single thing from black and white. Rather, you're using these grays to mix your way up the value scale. Okay, I'll take some of this white, add it into this, and see what that looks like. May need to get a little bit more white in here, but I actually think that looks good. That looks like a step, going a step darker. I think that will read well on the value scale, so I'm going to leave that for now. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so we'll need 2 more. Okay, so let's actually, maybe what we'll do is we'll actually move this step up a little bit. Oh, and we will have pure white, so that'll be 9. So really we just need 1 more. Let's actually do our darker values first and then see where we're at. So I'm mixing this variety. I know I need 10 different values to apply to my scale. Right now I'll have about 9. So I'll see, I'm going to mix these first and then see where I can add in another value. Okay, so now I've done that lighter side. And I'm going to do some darker values over in here. So I'll use this black to mix down. Start with this little tab of paint. Okay, that's a nice step. So I'm going to use what's on my palette knife. I'll scrape up a little bit more of this black as well. I'll mix that into this pile. Okay, there we go. Now I'll again take what's already on my palette knife. And I'll mix that into this pile. Okay, I think that could go a little bit darker to feel a little bit more distinctive from that mid-tone gray that we made. Okay, those are looking good. So again, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We need 1 more value. I do think I could add 1 other gray in here, so I'm going to move this up. And I'm going to push this one a little bit lighter, so I'm going to add some more of this gray below it. Okay, so now we will have 10 distinctive steps there. going from pure white to our chromatic black that is going warm. All right. So you get the picture with what that value scale looks like and the approach. Now I will mix this out, but I'm not going to show the full thing in this video because you can do that on your own. But I will show you, I will mix the rest of these neutrals, both the black and what that mid-tone will look like. And I'll mix them out for this palette, mix out the entire thing on my own, and I'll upload the photo of what that looks like as well. And you'll of course see it in the value scales demo piece. But I'll at least mix each of the warm and cool neutrals for these combinations that we have. So let's do the Alizarin Crimson and Phthalo Green. And again, what you're going to notice is when we first start combining these together is that they go incredibly dark. That is because Alizarin Crimson is already quite dark, and Phthalo Green is very dark too. And they're also translucent. They're both translucent colors, and translucent colors can, not always, but they can have a tendency to go darker. Transparent colors are going to read really well in shadow areas because they kind of sink into the paper, or the canvas rather. So you'll be able to see that this combination goes very, very dark, and especially when you're just mixing these together, it can be very difficult to kind of tell what the color is truly looking like, and we'll see as we add white how dramatically it can change. And so for these combinations in particular, it's important to do that little test. Okay, because this could almost just look like a pure black. Okay, scrape it up a little bit more. Alright, so let's test it. I believe it is leaning towards red, so it'd be going warmer. In this case, we're just going to test a little bit to begin. Wipe that off my palette knife. Okay, add a little bit of white. Yes, that's definitely leaning towards the red end of this color combination, so that is what I want. Alright, so that will work. I can mix a value scale from that. Now let's do the cool version. Scraping it up. You want to be careful in these neutrals at the top when you're mixing essentially black, not to get white into this combination. You want to keep at least some of this pure neutral combination that does look like black. Okay, and again, you can see how incredibly dark this combination goes, which is a great bit of knowledge to have, because if you have a really intensely dark shadow, like there's occlusion shadows, this combination could work really well for that. Okay, now let's also test it. And we want this side to be going cool, so in this case it'll be leaning towards the green. So we're starting off by just testing it a little bit, so we can make adjustments as needed. Okay, and we can see that one is much cooler. I am going to add a little bit more green into this. Just want to push it a little bit more green. Though this is already showing we have a warm, and you put this warm next to a cool, they make each other stand out. So that's another way of building contrast, is thinking of the temperature, having these different temperatures next to each other. Okay, so let's try that again. See if that works. that's going even cooler. Okay, so let's add a little bit more of that color in there so you can see. Okay, so again, we have the same combination of colors. We're able to make very different neutrals from just those two colors. That's all just about adjusting the temperature. Okay, so first let's just start by mixing this purple together, and this is going to go incredibly dark, just like kind of the combinations we were just doing. So I will have to test this purple and make sure I like it. Okay, let's just do a little test on the purple. Okay, yes, this will work. You can see the purple a little bit more. Now again, with the palettes that we have available to us, we're not going to get those super intense royal kind of purple colors, but we can mix a nice purple from the Alizarin Crimson, a little bit of the Phthalo green, and the Ultramarine blue. Okay, so let's look at what, I'm going to scrape this off. Let's look at what the purple and the yellow look like together. So on the side near the purple, I want to push it more cool, so put some purple down. Over here, I want to push it more warm. I'm just going to put a little bit of that purple down. That's going to be a very intense color. I'm going to have to add in a lot more yellow into this to push it warmer. So warm side. Okay, so let's start off by trying this out. And this, you can also really see how the yellow has such a light, lightening effect. So it really lightens the purple dramatically. And that is because yellow is the closest color to white. So if you want to lighten a color, adding yellow will do that. And if you want to lighten a color and make it really warm, yellow is going to be great for that. Okay, let's add more purple into that neutral combination. I'm going to push this side cooler. So you can see the purple or violet pushes things really dark. So it's a very dark color, and yellow has the opposite effect. So they're also opposite in terms of their value. Okay, so have a cooler neutral with our purple and yellow combination. Now let's make the warmer version. So if I wanted to make shadows for a yellow object, the way that I would do that would be adding purple or creating this neutral and adding it to the yellow. And we can see when we've neutralized yellow how much darker it goes. It also looks brown, and perhaps to the untrained eye at first it looks kind of strange, but that is what the shadow of a yellow object would be doing. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more purple to this warm combination. It's a little too warm. Okay, I'll even grab a little bit of this one too. Okay, so neutralize it a bit more. Okay, and then let's also see what each of these colors looks like with a bit of white in it as well. Bring this down. again, you'll be able to see that cool and warm contrast between these two different neutrals. So we will be painting a yellow object this week, so you'll want to keep in mind these neutrals that you're mixing with the yellow, because that will form the basis for mixing values for your yellow objects. Okay, so that has set you up for your neutral value scales project. So you'll be mixing out a full value scale for each of these combinations, and you'll be adding a row to for each of these combinations to your value scales project. So there'll be a total of 6 new rows added to it, and again, you can just do that with a hard edge application. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, just let me know. You can also look at the finished demo example as well to see what these colors, what these neutrals look like fully made into a value scale. Just remember that this original neutral that you're mixing with, in this case, if we look over here, it's the burnt umber and ultramarine blue. That's kind of like you're making your own black. And so then you're just treating that like your black and white value scale, where you mix out a whole value scale from there, going from pure white to a pure black. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, everyone. Here's the fully mixed neutrals palette with warm and cool strains with each neutral combination. And here's that palette applied to the value scale.